Shalom, shalom. The topic on tonight is Christ the Revolutionary. This will be part 3 of the lesson. Been delayed in bringing out part 3, but Most High willing, or not Most High willing, but that he allowed for us to be here tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this installment of the lesson. So Christ the Revolutionary, part 3. In the first part, chiefly in the first part, we defined what a revolutionary is. Some synonyms: a rebel, radical, agitator, freedom fighter, right? A lot of times when we think about the figure of Jesus Christ, Yahweh Shai in the Hebrew, we conjure images of usually Caesar Borgia, or white Jesus, right? A very passive and meek individual, wearing a robe and sandalless and walking around Jerusalem with long hair and just loving everybody and loving Herod and loving the Romans and loving the Israelites and loving the Samaritans, and we just loving the publicans and loving the sinners and the harlots and whatnot, and we have this image of Christ, and part of that is true, part of it is true, but there's so much more to the character of Christ. And oftentimes, especially in our understanding in the Christian church, that we only get that passive, nice, loving, compassionate view of Christ, but we don't get the radical, militant Christ. We don't get the view of militant Christ. Christ was an austere man. Christ, meaning that he had a serious countenance, right? There was times when people would ask him questions, and he was, for lack of a better word, rude to people, because he could see past what they were saying and see their ulterior motives, right? Christ in many regards was gangster, not in that he indulged in criminal activity, but gangster meaning he was fearless in the way that he approached people and dealt with people. He didn't care about what class system you were part of. He didn't care what social party you were part of. He didn't care what religious order you were part of. He was going to tell you truth, right? A lot of different people, like in modern times, will look at someone, I think a lot of people mythologize him, but like a Tupac Shakur, through his music and through certain interviews he had or whatever, he was very outspoken, right? He was bold, very bold in the way he talked about police brutality, the way he talked about racism, the way he talked about a lot of different things, the plight of the black man in our communities, through his music or in person. He was bold, and you can think of other activists throughout the ages that were very bold in the way they confronted oppression, the way they confronted the ills that plague their people. Christ was no different. And it is time for us to get a full understanding of the character and the image of Christ, the Black Messiah. Okay? And the character trait that Christ held isn't he's not the only one. The apostles had it. David had it. Moses had it. Abraham had it. Okay, when you go back into the book of Genesis and read about when Lot was taken captive by the kings of Elam, what did Abraham do? Abraham didn't send a letter. Abraham didn't send a servant and say, what you're doing is not fair, it's not right, and I don't like it. Can you please? No, what Abraham did was he girded himself up, him and his 318 servants, I want to say, and went into war and fought against those kings. And smote them, right? And rescued his nephew and everything that belonged to him. You know what I'm saying? He was a warrior. But then the scriptures also talk about, especially in the book of Yashar, it talks about how hospitable Abraham was. That he built himself like a like a house, or like a for lack of a better term, like a motel almost. And on his estate, it is said to have 4 gates to the north, the south, the east, and the west, and that strangers and travelers could come in, get food, get clothing, and lodging. He said he had these amenities set up every day, so that when there were strangers that traveled and sojourned through that area, they could find lodging where Abraham lived. So he was compassionate on one side and very hospitable on one hand, but then on the other hand, Abraham was a warrior. Straight up warrior. So when you think about his great, descendant, Yahweh Shai, Jesus Christ, he carried the self same spirit of his forefather, Abraham. Okay? So Christ the revolutionary. Christ the revolutionary. We're going to talk about Christ and how he was an activist. And when you think about the word activist, we're talking about a champion for social change. Okay? Christ was an activist. I listened to Dr. Umar Johnson. I think someone that many of us in the black community would call a true activist, a modern day black activist. And somebody mentioned LeBron James and, him building the I Promise school and whatnot. He said, first of all, that's a public school. That's not an independent private school. It's public. So, so he doesn't have control over that. But he said, when you look at the principles of the activists that came before myself, speaking of Dr. Umar, that they carried themselves a certain way, and there were certain things that they did that truly made them activists. He said, you can't call LeBron an activist. You know what I'm saying? He's done some beautiful things. He said he's got a black queen. He's playing basketball with his son, Bronny. He's done some good things, but LeBron is not an activist. And he says it's almost disrespectful to the true activists that have labored and have, put themselves in the front lines for the cause and liberation of black people to put LeBron James in the same sentence, right? Just being real about it. You can't put him in the same sentence. So when we're talking about the weight of the title of activist, right? Christ fits that. Christ was an activist, a champion for social change. Okay? Let's grab the book of Ezekiel, chapter 34, verses 4 through 6, and then 10 and 11. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 34, verses 4 through 6, 10 and 11.
Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 4. The disease have ye not strengthened, neither have ye healed that which was sick, neither have ye bound up that which was broken.
Salakia, so this is the prophet Ezekiel giving a charge to the prophets and ministers during that time. This is the word of the Most High God through the prophet to rebuke the people. You are the leaders of this people. You haven't been doing your job. Okay? You haven't been an activist. What is the word, the main word there? Act, to move. Ain't just words. You got to put words into action. Activist. Read on.
Neither have ye brought again that which was driven away, neither have ye sought that which was lost, but with force and with cruelty have ye ruled them.
Wow. So this is what the prophet is saying to the people. You haven't sought out the welfare of the people. You haven't made sure the people was good. If they lost, you're not trying to restore. You're not trying to build the people up. You're trying to rule over them and milk them for whatever they're worth to make your pockets fat. We know a lot of people within the black community that fit that latter description. But you don't find too many that are doing what the prophet said in the beginning of the passage. You can find a lot of charlatans, right? What does Dr. Umar call it? YouTubian struggle streamers? YouTubian struggle streamers that have a podcast, that have a platform on social media, YouTube, and that they get views and they say controversial stuff and they say stuff that's clickbait. But they're not actually out here doing anything for black people, really. They're just trying to get $1. Really. And will go against those actually doing the work, actually trying to organize grassroots activism, and will come against that. But guess what? That happened in the time of Christ. That happened in the time of the apostles. They're doing the work of God. They're doing the things to help turn our people around, what the prophet Ezekiel is even talking about here. But then you have people actively working against them. Read on.
Verse 5. And they were scattered because there is no shepherd.
What does it mean by shepherd? There was no leader. Because what a shepherd does for the sheep, right, is the shepherd guards the sheep, protects them, and gives them guidance and direction. There was no guidance. There was no direction. There was no leader. Read.
And they became meat to all the beasts of the field when they were scattered.
So because there were no righteous, just leaders to help guide the people, they became a prey to the predator. And we already know who the predator is. The devil? Oh, well, yeah, the devil has a part to play, but the devil has children. The devil has agents that he operates through that have made the prey, you know what I'm saying, to be scattered. Read.
Verse 6. My sheep wandered through all the mountains and upon every high hill. Yea, my flock was scattered upon all the face of the earth, and none did search or seek after them.
Then nobody cared. My sheep are scattered upon the face of the earth, and nobody said, man, let me go try to find these sheep for the Most High God. Let me try to take care of these sheep. Let me see how they do. Nobody cared. They were too consumed with their own needs and desire. We're talking about Christ, the activist. Okay? A radical, what did I say? A champion for social change. All right, verses 10 and 11.
Verse 10. Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against the shepherds, and I will require my flock at their hand, and cause them to cease from feeding the flock. Neither shall the shepherd feed themselves any more, for I will deliver my flock from their mouth, that they may not be meat for them.
You know how the Most High God does that, whether through by means of the religious leaders that we look up to or the social leaders we look up to. The Most High God a lot of times causes for the junk that they do in the dark to be exposed and be brought to the light, and for the people to see it, right, and become fed up and remove themselves out of their company. And now the people are just still trying to, no, that was a lie, that was a scandal. Nah, we not dealing with you no more. So those political figures that maybe 10 years ago, our people would have jumped on the bandwagon, right? Like one that come to mind, Barack Obama. In 2008, in 2012, when he was running for presidency, election and re-election, our people came out in droves to put him in office and to keep him in office. But when Kamala is running, he got the nerve to say that every black man that don't vote for her, I forget what he said exactly, but disparaging words, you know what I'm saying? And black people, black men and women wasn't feeling that. They wasn't feeling that. You just a puppet. So that's the Most High God. That's the way he begins to do it. And he said, you shall not feed my sheep anymore. There's a sprinkling going on in the land. The Most High God is waking up his people. Our people are beginning. We not, we use that term a lot, woke. Oh, we woke down. The people of God are not truly awake in the way they ought to be, but they're at least stirred out of their slumber. You know, like when somebody's sleeping real good and you trying to wake them up. Hey, yo, bro, wake up. Come on, bro, wake up. That's where we're at that state, right? When they're incoherent, but they have been stirred out of their slumber. They're not fully awake. You can't even tell them nothing. Bro, I'm about to leave real quick. Just remember to do this and do that before you go. You really think they're going to do that? But that's the state of black people 2024. We were snoring. Sound like a lawnmower. But the Most High God has stirred us enough to where we at least, oh God, what'd you say? Yeah. And God is trying to, no, it's time to awake. You've slept for much too long. Even the Apostle Paul said, awake unto righteousness. Okay? But our people are waking up. They're not listening to these leaders that 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, Reverend Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and a bevy of other leaders that have said certain things and moved our people and compelled our people unto change or whatever it was then. Now your voice has dimmed. No one wants to hear you. Why? Because you're going through the same rhetoric, and guess what? Our condition has not changed. You keep saying the same old stuff. Our condition has not changed. 10 and 11.
Verse 11. For thus saith the Lord God, behold, I, even I, will both search my sheep and seek them out.
Okay. Can you grab me Mark chapter 6, verse 34, please?
Mark chapter 6, verse what?
34.
Mark chapter 6, verse 34. And Christ, when he came out, saw much people, and was moved with compassion toward them.
Salakia. So we just read from the prophet Ezekiel, where he stipulates what the Most High God is looking for in a true shepherd. He said the true shepherds ought to be doing this, looking for the scattered sheep, trying to mend them, trying to restore them, trying to bring peace and comfort to the sheep, not feeding themselves and being cruel to them. So that's what the prophet Ezekiel said. Now we're going to see how Christ fulfilled the true protocol for a shepherd of God. From the top.
And Christ, when he came out, saw much people, and was moved with compassion toward them, because they were as sheep, not having a shepherd.
Wow, do you see what the writer says concerning Christ? Just like Ezekiel said that they are a sheep without shepherd, Christ recognized, ain't no shepherds around, ain't no leaders, there's no guidance. And a flock of sheep without shepherds and to be left to their own devices will eventually find themselves in harm's way. Because what did the sheep do? Protect the flock from danger, from wolves, from lions, from other predatory animals, to keep them from going off a cliff, for crying out loud. But when there is no shepherd, the dumb sheep, and when I say dumb sheep, not that they're necessarily stupid or ignorant animals, but because they lack certain abilities. These sheep are left to their own devices, and usually that's going to find them. They're going to find themselves in harm's way. Christ recognized they are without a shepherd. They need a good leader, and ain't nobody around. I got to step up and be that. Finish out the verse.
And he began to teach them many things.
Okay. So we're going to go to Hosea, chapter 9, verse 7.
Hosea chapter 9, verse 7.
Yes.
Hosea chapter 9, verse 7. The days of visitation are come. The days of recompense are come. Israel shall know it. The prophet is a fool. The spiritual man is mad for the multitude of thine iniquity and the great hatred.
Okay. So we just read how in the book of Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel said that you're not going to be a shepherd over my people anymore. You unfit and unworthy shepherds, you leaders of the people of the flock, you're not going to be the shepherds anymore. You're not going to have the liberty or the occasion to feed my people. I'm going to remove you out of the way. So now we're seeing the same sort of thing here. But he's speaking more in practical terms. He's saying the days of visitation are come. Meaning the Most High God is going to come and investigate the matter. Okay? I'm listening to Harry Potter, right? The 5th book, Order of the Phoenix. And we're at a point where, I forget what her name is, Professor Umbridge from the Ministry of Magic. She's coming into Hogwarts and she's doing like a sit-in and like examining all of the teachers while they're teaching. What is that called? And when you have to do that as an educator? An evaluation. Thank you. That's a very good word. So it's the same sort of thing. The Most High God is doing an evaluation. If you be spiritual, use your spiritual imagination. You got these prophets, you got these leaders and religious leaders who are teaching the people. And the Spirit of God is saying, okay, I've been hearing rumblings and rumors about your mess. Now I'm going to come and do an evaluation. It's like the IRS has showed up at your business. It's like HR has come to your company. Somebody's about to do an evaluation and audit. So all the lies you've been pushing, I want to see the receipts. Bring out the paperwork, the documentation. I got me and my staff, and we got our paperwork and documentation. I want to see what is what. Take me in the back room. No, take me in the back room. All right. Where's your information? I'm not really sure. Okay, that's going to be written down. And when I finish this evaluation, if you're found lacking, you're going to be put out of this position. This is what God is saying. The days of visitation are come. The days of recompense are come. The time of the evaluation of the Almighty God. I'm going to come and prove you and test you like he did with Sodom and Gomorrah. He said, shall I withhold this thing from my friend Abraham? I'm going to tell you what I came to do. I came to do an evaluation on Sodom and Gomorrah because I've heard some evil dealings have taken place in those cities. And it ain't just Sodom and Gomorrah. It was 5 cities altogether. If you read the book of Genesis and the book of Yashar, it's 5 cities. So the Most High God was doing an evaluation. I got to check this out, man. I got to see what's up. Because the cries of the oppressed have ascended into heaven. Just like if somebody sends a complaint to HR. If you get enough complaints, then eventually a representative from the company, from the higher ups, are going to have to go to that branch, that local branch, and do an investigation. We're hearing sexual harassment going on. We're hearing about whatever it might be. Racial discrimination. We're hearing about, we got to do an evaluation and figure out what's going on. God is doing that with his people. Okay? The prophet is a fool. The spiritual man is mad, meaning he's crazy. He's nuts. For the multitude of thine iniquity and the great hatred. I have here the Hebrew word for that word hatred in Hosea is mastema. Mastema. So for the great hatred, mastema we recognize as being a title or name for Satan. Mm-hmm. Hatred. Mm-hmm. Iniquity, hatred, mastema. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting there. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now we're going to have you go to the book of Matthew, chapter 23. We're going to read verses 15, 17, 33. All right, the book of Matthew, chapter 23, verses 15, 17, and 33.
Matthew chapter 23, verse 15. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you compass sea and land to make one proselyte. And when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves.
Salakia, so we're seeing Christ firsthand, right? Or rather in real time, doing what the scripture is saying that a prophet ought to do. To rebuke and to reprove and to be a true shepherd to the flock. Christ is rebuking them like Ezekiel rebuked them, like Hosea rebuked the false prophets of old. Y'all are hypocrites. Y'all not doing your job. Y'all want the glory and the prestige, you want the honor and the reverence, but you ain't put in no work. You haven't improved the lives of the people at all, spiritually or otherwise. Okay, verse 17.
Verse 17. Ye fools and blind.
Salakia, where do we see that word fool?
In Hosea.
In Hosea, he said the prophets are fools. Verse 15, Christ said, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. He's talking about the prophets. He's talking about the religious leaders. You're seeing the connection. Ye fools and blind. Christ see what's going on is the same thing that the prophet Hosea was seeing hundreds of years beforehand. Read.
Ye fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctified the gold? Verse 19?
33.
33, Salakia. Verse 33. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? Okay, so this is what they have coming to them if they don't repent. This is what they have coming to them. Can you go to Luke 18? We're going to read verses 1 through 8 again. Luke 18, verses 1 through 8.
Okay, Luke 18, verses 1 through 8. And he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought always to pray and not to faint, saying, there was in a city a judge which feared not God, neither regarded man. And there was a widow in that city, and she came unto him, saying, avenge me of mine adversary. And he would not for a while. Salakia,
so although this is a parable, he's speaking of things that are actually happening. So this parable is a symbolism or representation of the oppression that he and his people were enduring by the hand of the Romans at this time. Okay? So this widow woman coming to an unjust judge is no different than the persecution and the affliction that the Israelites, the Judeans were experiencing in their land under Roman imperialism. Okay? So we got to understand that. But Christ was an activist, a champion for social change. Read.
And he would not for a while, but afterward he said within himself, though I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because this widow troubleth me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. And Yahweh said, hear what the unjust judge saith, and shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, though he bear long with them?
Okay. So Christ is talking about that change that's going to come. So he's preaching to the people and encouraging them, letting them know that this oppression and stuff that you're dealing with, it's going to change. So I'm giving you a parable to try to demonstrate to you that the persistence of this widow woman brought about a change in her life. The same thing gonna happen for y'all. It ain't gonna stay like this. A change is going to come. A change, a reformation in this social order is going to happen. Read.
Verse 8. I tell you that I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth?
Okay, so Christ is saying that the Most High God is going to avenge his people speedily. Now, when Christ spoke, crowds gathered. And there were spies. There were Herodians. We talked about the Herodians. They were actually Israelites who were in league with Herod, the Idumean, the Edomite. That sound familiar? That sound like Negropeans that are connected with the white power structure. That's what it sounded like to me. So when Christ was talking and giving this speech here, you had not only supporters, but you had detractors to his movement. And he's telling them, because he spoke in parables. Sometimes he was bold and said it exactly how he meant, but sometimes he spoke in parables. Right? So that his meaning was a little hidden. But he said, will not the Father speedily bring these things upon you, crying day and night for his people? Will he not speedily deliver his elect? What is that talking about? Like, well, what I'm trying to do is cause us to read between the lines, because when we read this as Christians, because we view Christ as Christ the meek, these things go over our head. The Israelites during that time were being killed and put to death for protests and for agitation to the establishment, the Roman establishment. Christ understood that. He supported that. And he's telling the people that God is going to come and free you from this oppression. Well, who is the one afflicting the oppression? The Romans. So what is Christ saying in so many words? That God is going to remove the Romans out of the way and place you back on top. That's what he's saying. Read that verse again. What is it, verse 7? 7 and 8.
Verse 7. And shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him?
So you're crying day and night. There's somebody afflicting you, causing you to cry day and night. You listen to the Marvin Gaye song. Is it Inner City Blues? I believe it's the Inner City Blues, right? Where,
He has a song called Inner City Blues.
huh?
He has a song called Inner City Blues.
That's what I'm talking about. And when you listen to the words, I remember one time even seeing it on YouTube, and you see the comments like maybe a couple years ago and saying, man, he wrote this in the 60s or 70s and it's still prevalent today. And he's just singing about all the ills and the things that we experience in the inner city. Police genocide he talked about can't pay your bills, talking about being drafted to go and fight in the war. And they don't care nothing about you. Talk about all the stuff we deal with. Inner City Blues, where you cry both day and night. Man, woman, and child, we deal with this day and night. Christ is saying, will not the Heavenly Father speedily avenge you? I'm showing you a parable where the unjust judge even stepped up and said, you know what? I'm going to help you out. Will not God speedily? These are the things he's saying without saying it. He was an activist. He stood on that. He was a champion for social change. Okay? Now, with that being said, let's go back to Luke 13, 1 through 3. I read it out of order, so it kind of messed up my flow, but I'm going to read it back in order. Luke chapter 13, verses 1 through 3. So he gave a parable in his speech, right? He gave a parable in his speech talking about how this widow woman was afflicted. He's saying, but if you cry day and night, will not God avenge you and take away the source of your crying? You ain't crying for no reason. You ain't crying because you stubbed your toe on a rock. You crying because somebody is afflicting you, actively bringing you down. Let's grab a passage real quick. Brother Lee, grab me Isaiah chapter 51, and we're going to read verses 22 and 23. This is what causes our people to cry both day and night. Isaiah chapter 51, verses 22 and 23.
Isaiah 51, verse 22. Thus saith the Lord, so Slakius, thus saith thy Lord, the Lord, and thy God that pleadeth the cause of his people.
Hold it right there. So it's saying, thus saith thy Lord, the Lord thy God that pleadeth the cause of his people. So who is this talking? God is talking. And he's talking on behalf of the needs and the welfare of his people. This is God's thoughts being given unto the people by way of the prophet Isaiah. But this is God speaking. This is how I feel about what's happening to my people. Read.
Behold, I have taken out of thine hand the cup of trembling.
So there's a cup that the people have been drinking from, and this cup has trembling in it. Fearfulness. Go back to the parable with Christ. Matter of fact, grab me that. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 65.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 65. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But Yahweh shall give thee there a trembling heart, and a failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind.
Okay, so the Most High God in the book of Isaiah said, I'm going to take out of your hand the cup of trembling. What's this cup of trembling? What I said in Deuteronomy that you would have because you disobeyed me. So the time is going to come where I'm going to remove that. Christ said, will he not speedily avenge his people who cry both day and night because their affliction? But this is that cup of trembling. So when we go back to Deuteronomy and read verse 65, and among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but Yahweh shall give thee a trembling heart. So who's the vessels to produce this trembling and this sorrow and all this stuff? These nations were amongst. They're the conduit for the affliction. God's not physically coming down and afflicting us. He's using them to afflict us. These nations that we're scattered amongst. Okay? So now let's go back to Isaiah 51, 22 and 23 from the top.
Verse 22. Thus saith the Lord, thy Lord, the Lord, and thy God, that pleadeth the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out of thine hand the cup of trembling, even the dregs of the cup of my fury.
Okay.
Thou shalt no more drink it again.
So what is the Most High God saying to the prophet, to the people? He's saying, what you've been afflicted with, that cup of trembling that you've been drinking and getting drunk off, he said, I'm going to remove it out your hand and you won't have to drink it no more. Why are we bringing this out? Because Christ is giving the parable and saying that the elect of God have been crying both day and night because of their affliction. This affliction is not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a product of their imagination. This affliction is real. And there are people, these nations are bringing this affliction about. But he said, will not God deliver you speedily? Read on.
Verse 23. But I will put it into the hand of them that afflict thee,
Mm.
which have said to thy soul, Bow down, that we may go over. And thou hast laid thy body as the ground, and as the street to them that went over.
Do you hear what God is saying about his people? He said, in that cup of trembling, you have had to get down on the ground and let the nation step all over you like a doormat. That's not going to happen any longer. That's why you're crying day and night. That and among other things are why you cry day and night. But I'm going to deliver you speedily. That's what Christ said. That's what Christ said. And who's going to be the minister to exact these things, these prophecies? That very man that spoke it, Christ, the Redeemer, the Deliverer, the activist, the revolutionary. He wasn't saying, let's keep the status quo as is. No, he said, things are going to change. There's going to be a drastic change to the way things are right now. Okay? Let's go back to Luke 13, 1 through 3.
Luke 13, verses 1 through 3. There were present at that season some that told him of the Galileans, whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices.
So I bring this out to show you, like, there were literal things that were taking place. So when we read about the Romans in the book of the Gospels, right, we are maybe it doesn't pass our mind the brutality and the affliction and the persecution and the police genocide. They were police. It was a police state in the land of the Judeans. A police state. Pilate was an officer of the Roman government. He was an officer of the Roman government. Read that verse and see what, on a day-to-day basis, what were happening to our great ancestors. Read that again.
There were present at that season some that told him of the Galileans.
So there were people, because we didn't have social media during that time. We didn't have news reporters. We didn't even have newspapers. So it was just word of mouth. So you had people coming and telling Christ, yo, bruh, you hear about what happened to the old boy? That group of people that got killed. What happened to him? Read.
Whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices.
This officer of the Roman government came and killed some innocent people who were sacrificing unto their God. He killed them and mingled their blood with their sacrifice. And they're telling Christ, upset. They're coming to the revolutionary and telling him, you see this stuff that's happening? This is what we're dealing with every day. Read.
Verse 2. And Yahushua answering said unto them, Suppose ye that these Galileans were sinners above all the Galileans, because they suffered such things? I tell you, nay, but except ye repent, ye shall all likewise perish.
Okay, so in order for us to get to that place, right, that place where we're redeemed and we're freed and where the Most High God is saving his elect, there has to be a reformation within ourselves. Because all of us ain't going to see that promised land. We not. All of us are not going to experience the glory that is to come. Because many of us are not even fit for it. Some of us like oppression so much, we're not even fit for it. Be weeping and crying when they see America destroyed. They weeping and crying just because their favorite president didn't get the seat. People having mental breakdowns because Kamala did not win the presidency.
The lefties are, well, they're giving me too much content.
I'm sorry. No! Why?
People crying, upset, and cussing because Trump is. So how much more when this whole system is utterly abolished? Okay? Now we're going to talk about Christ and how he sought a political revolution, meaning a radical change in government. You got to read between the lines and see how Christ moved. How Christ sought political revolution. Let's go to the book of Luke, chapter 12, verses 49 through 51, Brother Lee. The book of Luke, chapter 12, verses 49 through 51.
Luke chapter 12, verse 49. I am come to send fire on the earth, and what will I, if it be already kindled? But I have a baptism to be baptized with? And how am I straight until it be accomplished? Suppose ye that I am come to give peace on the earth? I tell you, nay, but rather division.
So Christ let us know right there. Again, all we know is the peaceable and meek Christ. We don't hear these words uttered in the Christian church. He said, I didn't come for peace, I came for division. Wait, excuse me? That's not the Christ I was taught coming up. He said, I come to send fire on the earth. And what will I if it be already kindled? So there's already been a stir. I'm coming to add to it. I come to bring division. He was looking for a political change. Political revolution. Okay, from there, let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 34, verses 8 through 10. Christ saw political revolution.
Isaiah 34, verse 8. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, in the year of recompenses, for the controversy of Zion. And the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust thereof into brimstone, and the land thereof shall become burning pitch. It shall be, Salakia, it shall not be.
So, Salakia, let me hold you right there. When it says that the land shall come to burning pitch, what's the only thing that can create burning pitch?
Fire.
Fire. What did Christ say he came to bring on the earth?
Fire and brimstone.
Fire. I come to bring fire on the earth. Literal and spiritual. Because he talked about the baptism in the next verse. But that's also literal. He's going to bring fire from heaven. Okay, read to verse 10.
Verse 10. It shall not be quenched night nor day. The smoke thereof shall go up forever. From generation to generation it shall lie waste. None shall pass through it forever and ever.
Okay. Let's also grab the book of Zephaniah, Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 8.
Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 8. Therefore, wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy.
Okay, so we see Christ saying, I come to bring a fire, but we see the prophets of old speaking about end time events. Those things haven't happened yet. So Christians don't like to talk about it, they just want to gloss over it, but these things are going to happen. Who's going to facilitate this? Who's going to bring this to pass? Christ! He is going to be the vehicle in which the indignation of the Almighty God is poured out upon the earth. Christ the Redeemer, him and his heavenly hosts are going to come and bring fire upon earth and destroy the wicked. He said, I come not to bring peace on the earth, I come to bring division. I come with a sword, it says in another passage. Send fire. These are the things Christ is talking about. From there, let's go to the book of John, chapter 5, verses 22 through 27.
The book of John chapter 5, verse 22. For the Father judgeth no man, but have committed all judgment unto the Son.
You hear that? So that confirms what I just said. Who's the vehicle to bring the judgment that we just read in Isaiah and in Zephaniah? Christ. He said, if the Father judges no man, he's given that to me. I'm going to judge. Read 22 from the top.
Verse 22. For the Father judgeth no man, but have committed all judgment unto the Son.
Did he say some judgment?
No, all judgment.
All judgment unto the Son. He's placed it on me. I get to judge the matter. Because he's found me worthy to do so. Read on.
That all men should honor the Son, even as they honor the Father. He that honoreth not the Son, honoreth not the Father which hath sent him.
Mm-hmm.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word, and believeth on him that sent me, have everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. Verse 25. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. For as the Father hath lit life in himself, so hath he given to the Son to have life in himself.
Salakia, so he's talking about all these wonderful things that are promised unto the elect, the righteous. But he said all judgment is given to him. Let's read verse 27 and see how he ends this off.
Verse 27, and have given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man.
Okay, so not only can he grant eternal life, but he can also execute judgment. That's talking about death. That's talking about slaying up the wicked. So I can give eternal life to them whom the Father has chose. He's given me that ability to do that. But on the other hand, he gave me the ability to execute judgment on those that are unworthy. Okay? This is how Christ sought political revolution. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 32, verse 1.
The book of Isaiah chapter 32, verse 1. Behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment.
Okay, so this is just giving a principle. A king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment. The problem is, the earth right now has been given into the hands of the wicked. So the kings, the dignitaries, the rulers, the governmental rulers, they're not ruling in righteousness. And the princes, because a principality is ran by a prince. So these principalities and these areas, these governments, they should have rulers that are governing the people in righteousness. That's not happening. So what's going to ultimately happen? All these wicked rulers are going to be moved out of the way, put down and destroyed, and a righteous ruler shall reign, and appoint other righteous princes under him to reign over these people. Okay? Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 5.
Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 5. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch. A king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth.
So it's prophesied of what Christ was going to do. So when he came on the scene and he spoke and he did his activism thing, right? It's only fulfilling prophecy. But he didn't get to actually fulfill all of what David and the prophets spoke. He only performed half the mission. When he come back, he going to fulfill all of it. He's only able to do part of it, only the part that was within prophecy for him to fulfill. His suffering, his death, his resurrection. But when he comes back, he's going to conquer and sit upon that seat of judgment and judge the nation of the earth. There's going to be a revolution. He spoke about it and began the movement in his first advent, but when he come back, he's going to establish it. And when you have a regime that is wicked and perverse and oppressive, what is the only way to bring about peace? You got to overthrow that government. You see that now when you turn on TV, CNN, and you're seeing footage in Greece and in other places, you're seeing large protests, insurrections. January 6th, they didn't like the way things were going, so what did they do, these Trump supporters? They stormed the Capitol building. It happened all throughout the ages. When the government is corrupt and oppressive and the people can't take it no more, they come together and they seek to overthrow the government. And then they place in power one they feel is worthy. Same thing here. But Christ's not going to need the people to fight. He can do it all himself. He's going to overthrow this existing government and destroy it so that he might sit upon it and rule as a righteous judge would rule, as a righteous king would rule. Okay? From there, let's go to Matthew chapter 24, verse 30. Gail, I actually have you grab that. Matthew chapter 24, verse 30.
Matthew chapter 24, verse 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
Okay, so this is further confirmation from his own mouth of what's going to be at the end of the age. It's going to be him bringing about this political and social revolution. Him. We don't look at it in those terms because we just, we look at it in a religious way. But he's going to bring about a revolution. Okay, because when we think about politics, we're just thinking, essentially, let's look that up. Can somebody go into Google and define politics? Politics. Let's define that. Because I think we think about politics in terms of just watching Fox News and voting. And no, politics in a simple way is defined as this.
Politics, the activities associated with the governance of a country or other area, especially the debate or conflict among individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power.
Okay, so it said the activities that deal with governance. The activities that deal with governance. What is governance? Ruling over a people. The activities that deal with ruling over a people. Rulership. The liberties and the functions of rulership. That's what politics are. And we all seek a political revolution with Christ, right? That means a reformation and a change with the activities and the functions of governance, rulership. When Christ returns, are we expecting for democracy to remain? No. A theocracy. A theocracy is a government ruled by God. That's what we're looking for. Are we looking for communism? Are we looking for that? Are we expecting Christ to be a president over the earth where he could be voted out? That there's still a Republican and Democratic Party? No. He's going to reign with all power, absolute power over the earth. Okay, so that's a political revolution. Because you don't have nobody like that right now in the modern age. Everyone's either a president or a prime minister. And if they're a king, they're kind of a figurehead. And you have some other person that actually does the politics, the functions of governance. You have one person one day, and the next day you have somebody else. Man or woman. Because you have women presidents and prime ministers. But Christ ain't going to be able to be voted out or nothing like that. He's going to reign and rule. Okay? Let's go to Matthew chapter 13, verses 40 through 42. I'll have you grab that, Gil. Matthew chapter 13, verses 40 through 42. We're almost finished.
Matthew chapter 13, verses 40 through 42. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend.
Hold on. He said at the end of the age, he said the Son of Man shall gather, him and the angels shall gather up the tares, right? Out of his what? Gather them up out of what? Starts with a K. Gather them
out of his kingdom.
Out of his kingdom. Who rules over a kingdom?
King.
A king. So the Son of Man shall be a king, and he's already prophesying thousands of years before it's actually established that I'm going to have me a kingdom. And everybody that's not worthy going to be devoured out of there. They're not going to exist in my kingdom. Okay, read that again.
The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity. Verse 42. And shall cast them into a furnace of fire.
What did Christ say earlier in the passage? He said, think not that I came to bring peace. I came to bring division. I come to send fire upon the earth. We read in Isaiah and Zephaniah about that recompense, that fire. He's saying the same thing. He also said himself that the Father hath given me all judgment to execute judgment upon the earth. All judgment has been given unto me. So if I found you unworthy, we're not going to sit down and negotiate terms of your expulsion. I'm going to destroy you, and that's going to be it. You're not going to have anything to say. Well, can we have a council or a hearing? No, there's not going to be any hearing. I don't want to hear it. You're going to be utterly destroyed, and that's the end of it. Was that all of 12? I'm sorry, all of 42?
Yes.
From there, let's go to Matthew chapter 25 and read verses 31, 32, and 41. Matthew chapter 25, verses 31, 32, and 41.
Okay, Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 and 32. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another.
So there's, right there, we're seeing where he's saying some are not worthy, and he's going to cast them out. He's going to separate them. He said, I'll come not to bring peace, but division. And we're seeing here he's speaking of, in the end times, I'm going to divide. Not gather up everybody together and we're all going to have fun. No, you over here and you over there. Read.
And before him, 32. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. Verse 41. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels.
So that confirms that it will be a political revolution. Political meaning the functions or actions of governance, rulership. Because these nations that are in power and that reign over other nations, Christ is going to dictate who has liberties and who doesn't. He's going to dictate it. So you know how you hear the term third world nation? Christ is going to be able to dictate who's going to be the third world nations. Because the third world nations now are the ones that have been subjugated by the European powers, the colonial powers, whether old colonial or neo-colonial. Because now you have China, asserting itself as a new political power, new social power in the earth, a colonial power. You see Chinese presence in Africa, Chinese presence in the Caribbean, owning property. They're the new colonialists. Okay? But Christ on that day is going to let the nations know who's who and what's what. Okay? A political revolution. From there, now we're going to talk about the fact that Christ, as a revolutionary, not only did he address the evils in government, but he addressed the ills in his own community. Right? Just like every revolutionary and every activist that we see, it can't just be talking about, the oppressor. The white man is the oppressor, my brother. We can't just talk about the white man and what he's done wrong to us. You got to begin to address the problems within our community. Because in order for us to overcome the oppressor, in order for us to overcome the things that are happening, we have to organize. We have to organize. Brother Lee, can you grab this for me? The book of Zephaniah, chapter 4, verse 1. It's probably not it. Probably 2 and 1. Let's see. Two and 1.
Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1. Gather yourselves together. Gather together, a nation not desired. O nation not desired.
Okay. Gather yourselves together. Get organized. Oh, nation not desired. It's not just not desired by other nations, not desired by your own nation. Hey, you want to work together and do this? Black people, I don't know. What you mean you don't know? I don't like working with black people. There's always some foolishness. How many times we have that certain mentality? Not to say there ain't some truth to it, but if you're not going to choose to work with me, are you going to do something towards the freedom and liberation of our people? Yeah, I do my own thing. I go to work and I come home. You don't do nothing. I give $1 if I see a homeless person. That's not enough. That's not enough. Come together, O nation not desired. Gather yourselves together. So we were just, where were we just at before that?
Is that for 9, 2, and 1?
No, I mean, we didn't read anything before that. So, I want you to go to Matthew, but we have to organize ourselves. We have to organize ourselves in righteousness. Because what I was saying is that we can't just sit up talking about the oppressor and all what he's doing. Yeah, he gonna continue to be the oppressor. Ain't nothing gonna change. But if we stay who we are and keep doing what we've been doing, we're gonna continue to be oppressed and just take it. You just like being oppressed? You like this oppressive state? Yeah, it ain't bad, bro. You know, I get a little money, a little liquor. You know, I'm good, bro. You don't want to see yourself liberated? I am liberated. Don't nobody enslave me. I'm free. You a slave in your mind. Brother Malcolm talked about, you got that slave mind. You got to get rid of that slave mind. When Shorty came in there, he still got his hair conked. He still got that slave mind. But brother, we'll help you get out of that. Shake off them slave rags you got on. And spiritually, truly spiritually, many of us still have that slave mentality. The plantation mentality. We do not want to leave because that requires to actually confront the problem in your life. To actually confront the source of the oppression. We don't want to do that. We just want to acquiesce and just let things be comfortable the way they've always been. I don't want to say nothing to actually upset this oppressor. Because he giving me some good stuff here, you know. I don't want to mess up what I got going on. Okay? But you have to, because I'm saying here that not only did he address the evils in government, but he addressed the ills in his own community. So we have to be educated. We have to be perfected before we can even begin to deal with those problems. We're not even organized. We can't even talk to our brother without fighting, and that's the problem. That's the problem. We can't even do nothing because we fighting and bickering with one another over how we should operate. Something you wanted to say? All right, from there, let's get Matthew chapter 5. Two more verses, we're done. Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 and 22, 27 and 28, 38 through 40, 43 and 44. I'll say it again. But let's just start. Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 22. You.
Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 22. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. So
this is the Beatitudes that Christ was speaking. But again, yeah, he dealt with the oppression. He talked about the oppressive people and nation that was over his people. But he also definitely had to deal with us. You got to get yourself in order. If you want the redemption and deliverance, you want these things that are promised for us, you got to get yourself in order. You can't keep acting the way you've been acting and think you're going to get this glory. Yeah. The glory is only reserved for those that are worthy and those that sacrifice. Read.
Verse 22. But I say unto you that whosoever ever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Rakah, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire.
Okay, so Christ was dealing with his own people because you're under the impression that if you kill, that's where the sin begins. He's saying if you angry with your brother with no cause, that's where the sin begins. That's equivalent to killing your brother. We get that in the book of John, which I think we'll read. No, we probably won't. But he said, he that hateth his brother is a murderer. That is something useful that our people can use today. That principle. You think just because I shoot somebody or I stab somebody and kill them, then that, that's bad. No. When you operate like what Christ is talking about, that's not good at all. You need to check that before we can do anything. Let's go to verse 27 and 28.
Verses 27 and 28. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her, hath committed adultery with her already in his heart.
Okay. So, dealing with the adultery thing. It was something I saw, or actually I heard on the Steve Harvey morning show, right? Where they got some letter that came in, and the girl is saying, I have a friend who had a man, and they were married, and I've been her friend for a long time, and he tried to come on to me, and I said we shouldn't do it, but then in the next stanza of her essay or whatever, she's saying that they was together while he was married to her friend, and eventually it came to the point where she felt she wanted to be with him and marry him, and she feels like this is her soulmate. The thing that was crazy is she went to her pastor and spoke to her pastor about the romantic situation, and she asked his advice. What should I do? He said there are no rules when it comes to your soulmate. Steve Harvey even had to say, one of my recommendations would be, you need to find yourself another church. Mm-hmm. You need to find yourself another. There's no rules when it comes to your soulmate. So not only can you desecrate the relation, the friendship, quote unquote, because that's something else Steve Harvey said. He said, let me tell you something. You wasn't her friend. Mm-hmm. That wasn't your true friend. Because you said right here, when he came to you the first time, you told him we shouldn't do it. But then the very next line you said y'all was messing around with each other while they were married. Mm-hmm. You're not a friend to this woman. So not only did you spat on what you called your friendship, but then committing adultery. And this is happening all the time. All the time. Promiscuity and adultery and fornication amongst our people. And we think it's cool. So Christ talked about the true meaning of killing your brother, and he's talking about the adultery issue, the sexual immorality issue. These things we need to deal with as a people before we can even move forward and do anything. How are you supposed to try to overcome the oppressor and you sleeping with your brother's wife? How you doing that? You cheating on your wife with some side piece you got. How you doing that and you sitting up having your back broken by some other dude down the street? Jumping from person to person. He got a side piece, she got a side piece. Open relationships and all types of folly. Okay? Was that to 28?
Yes.
Let's do verse 38 to 40 of Matthew chapter 5.
38, verses 38 through 40. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. You said to what?
To 40 on that one. Yeah, so now Christ is talking about mercy. That's something big we need. Mercy and compassion. Something we are unwilling to do. We want the upper hand. He ain't going to take me for no sucker. I understand nobody wants to get done in wrong. But is there any mercy, any compassion that you'll exhibit towards your brother? Okay. And now verses 43 and 44.
Verses 43 and 44. Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you.
Yeah. So this is a big thing. Goes along with everything else he mentioned in this chapter. To have that mercy, to have that forgiveness, to be willing to do that with your brother and not be evil. Okay? Last verse. Brother Lee, can you grab me the book of John, chapter 13, verses 34 and 35. We'll close out on this. Christ the revolutionary. John, chapter 13, verses 34 and 35.
The book of John, chapter 13, verse 34. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. Verse 35. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love to one another.
Okay.
One to one.
So we're seeing how he addressed the ills within his community and talked about it. So the way you see me, the way I've dealt with y'all, that's how y'all should deal with one another. But now let's also be cognizant that Christ, he wasn't always just saying sweet things. There was time where he had to rebuke and reprove. That's also a part of it. He's just not being nice and sweet all the time. But the way I dealt with you, but I always came to you with righteousness. Even if I had to rebuke you, Peter, even if I have to rebuke this person or that person, I came to you in righteousness and in truth. This is how you should deal with one another. Love, mercy, these sort of things. Even if a brother do you wrong, be willing. Be willing. You're not willing to do that. You're willing to kill your brother. Commit all manner of evil against them. Some people say, you want to hate on me? I steal your girl. Didn't we hear that?
Yeah, we heard it.
Heard Dr. Umar say that. I take all the peach cobbler. I take all the cookies out the cookie jar. What kind of junk is that? You know? But we're going to leave it there. Again, the title of the lesson is Christ the Revolutionary.